Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Sun City in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic, sparkling, winning Wednesday. How was your day? What celebrations did you have earlier this morning for your wins for the week? What wins are you celebrating from today? I love winning Wednesdays because winning Wednesdays means that I have an accountability call with my accountability coach. And there are days that come up, it's like, oh crap, I have my accountability call. What was I supposed to do this week? Because sometimes life gets in the way. The piece of paper you wrote everything, the notebook I wrote everything onto, I'm now several pages on. I forgot to go and schedule those tasks into my calendar. So, you know, I'm not the perfect person. I make mistakes like everybody else. And those are some of the ones. And sometimes it's just like, oh, what was I supposed to do? And it's usually about Wednesday, Tuesdays, occasionally Wednesday morning. So I'll go in there and I'll have a furiously find this list, and I find the list and I look down and go, oh, I did that. Oh, I did that. Oh, I did that one too. Oh, and suddenly I've got, oh, yes, now I can give her updates on these ones because I've actually done that one and that one and that one. I'm partway through doing this one. Yeah, I need to extend the deadline on this one because I didn't get to that one this week. So, you know, it's kind of cool going like that when sometimes I don't do it all the time. I try to make sure by Tuesday everything is done. My report is written up so I can my list is updated so I can give her the report in the morning, go through and go, yep, got that done, got that done. Had a little problem with this one. What do you recommend with this one? But I have an amazing accountability coach. So I love my accountability times, and we're able to talk about some of the wins this week, which was awesome. And then after the call, well, first of all, the day started off, I got on the training call. This is the funniest thing. I have never done this before. I don't recall, put it this way, I don't recall ever doing this before. But I get on the call this morning, and there's a couple of people in the room with the CEO, and I'm usually one of the first ones on as well. And so I took my camera off, turned my camera on, and I just started laughing. And I was like, what? And I just go like this. The CEO and I had the exact same color shirts on. And on my screen, we were next to each other on the Zoom call. It was so funny. And I just started my day off on a good note. But then we followed it up with the call with having amazing training, which was awesome. And then after that call, I did my live, and then I had my accountability call. Even got a couple of phone calls from a friend I haven't spoken to for a few months. So I did a very quick catch up with her because we were both busy days. So we had I think less than 5 minutes on the phone both times. But you know, it's just been a crazy day. And then some of the requests coming through the chat were just sort of like, what are these people thinking? So overall, it was a crazy day, but it was a fun way. It wasn't crazy in the fact that I was sort of like, don't they get this type of thing. It was just a crazy day with just some of the requests that were coming through and some of the things they were asking, you know, well, can we do this? Can we do that? And I'm sort of like, wait, what? Nope, we can't do that. So it wasn't outlandish requests. It wasn't ones that just sort of like, do these people have a brain in their head? No, it was people who were asking good questions. It's just sort of like my brain was going in different directions. It was just one of those days when my brain was going a little crazy. I wasn't sure what. But then I finished up with them this evening and went and got changed. And Zephy and I went for a nice relaxing walk. And Zephy has this thing of when we go out of the RV, she goes then to the path, to the road, and she always goes left. She never goes right unless it's lunchtime. She tries to go left when I have a trash bag in my hand because the trash can's to the right. And so I will tell her as we're walking down the path, go right, Zephy, to the right, Zephy, to the right. And sometimes she'll sort of go to the left and I go, Zephy, that is not right. And she'll look at me and then kind of do a and turn around and walk to the right. So she is learning her left and her rights, which is kind of cool. So she always goes out to the left. So we go out to the left and she walks up the middle of the street, up the main street, which goes up between the two blocks on either side, and or goes up the middle of the pet area. And so we get to the top there, and usually I stand there and I go left or right. Didn't even have to ask her today. She just goes around to the right. I'm like, we're on the long walk today. Awesome. And she wasn't running. She wasn't trotting. Her limp looks like it's gone completely now. Even on the times that she does trot, she's not limping, which is awesome. So I'm thankful for that. But she just casually turns the corner and just starts going off to the right. And I'm like, yay. And so we had a nice relaxing longer walk today. And she takes us where she wants to go on the walk, and unless it's the morning, and we're on a time crunch to get back for the training and stuff. But the evening ones, she kind of gets a little bit of a loose leash and gets to go whichever direction she wants based on the time that we leave here. But yeah, she did walk. So she did this great big long walk. And then there's this one part of the street, and I don't know what it is, but the grass is on this side, RVs are on this side, and I walk over towards the grass for her, and she's pulling me over towards the RV things. And I'm like, what the heck? And obviously she can probably smell something over there. She wants to go and investigate. But it happens at the same point on the walk every single time. When we come down the back way past where the dumpsters are and stuff, we get towards the end of our street, and she just starts veering across the road to the other side so she can do this big loop around the end of our street and not have to turn on it. So she has a way of letting me know, I don't want to go that way. Nope, I am not going. You can do whatever you like, Ma. I ain't going that way. So we have crazy days. So we had a very crazy day with a nice relaxing walk at the end of it. And I got back and I was like, I got to figure out what to do for dinner. I might do quiche tonight. She likes the broccoli one. Mind you, she likes the quiche Lorraine too, which has the cheese and the eggs and this one has ham or bacon. It's either ham or bacon it hasn't. She likes that one. Oh, that one's egg whites. That one's egg whites. And then the other one, the quiche with the broccoli and cheese in it is done with whole eggs. And she really, really likes that one too. And she likes the little pieces of broccoli as well. Sometimes those go faster than the egg and the cheese mix does. She'll actually pull the broccoli pieces out and eat them. So she likes her greens, which is good. Doesn't like spinach though. Doesn't like spinach. But so we've had a good day. So we'll probably do a quiche tonight. I don't know. Haven't fully decided. I've got meals in the fridge that I just need to heat up, and the freezer. So we had what did we have the other day that she really likes? Oh, we had chicken stuffed with cheese and chicken cordon bleu. That's what we had. Chicken cordon bleu. She loved it. Oh, her nose was going crazy with that one, but it was so good. Oh. Anyway, so tell your story question today is, what historic event that involved an ancestor would you like to go back and experience with them? And I didn't get a chance today to quickly look back through my family tree to see what events were happening at the time that they were happening when my ancestor was alive, to see what I wanted to go back and experience with them. And so I thought, I'm going to have to work on that one. But, I've got ancestors who came over on the ships from England to New Zealand. Some came via Australia, then to New Zealand, because the shipping thing shows that. So some of them must have come around across the down South Africa, the African continent, and then up towards Australia and come that way. And others, I don't know if they all came that way or if some came across the Atlantic down the bottom of South America and then across the Pacific to New Zealand. I'm not sure which way they came, but it would be interesting to see what the conditions would have been like on the boat as they were traveling over, and some of the experiences they had. So I thought that would be pretty cool, because they were not very big boats, not very big ships that they came on. And of course, they were all wind powered. So you're relying on the wind. Was there any that took longer because of, actually, no, that time they may have had some steamships. No, they did have steamships at that time, because it was the late 1800s and they did have steamships. So, what was that like coming across there? So that would have been one thing I thought about. And then I'm trying to think of other things, historic events that happened. And of course, there was in World War I on the 25th of April is the day that the Anzacs, which is the Australian New Zealand Army Corps, invaded Gallipoli, which was on the peninsula in Turkey. And that would have been fun not fun, that would have been interesting, because when I was last in New Zealand, they had this display at the National Museum at Te Papa, the National Museum of New Zealand. Actually, we went and saw it on, I think it was New Year's Day, we went and saw that one. And it was fantastic. We spent they said it takes about 20 minutes to go through. It took us 2.5 hours to go through. My mum, dad, and I. It took us 2.5 hours. And we are reading story after story after story of the experiences that people went through. And the cool part was that you would go into this area. I mean, the whole thing was horrific to start with, but the way they had done this exhibit was unbelievable. Weta Productions, which is behind Lord of the Rings, and they also worked on Avatar and The Hobbit and Heavenly Creatures and King Kong, and I'm trying to think of the other movies. Oh, Rin Tin Tin was another one. You know, they've done a lot. They're well known for their graphic effects and all that sort of stuff. They had these, you'd go into this room and there would be a person there who would be probably about 3 times the normal size of a person. They were huge. And the detail on these people were incredible. Like, you would look at their hands and see their nails, and they would be ragged. And there'd all be different types of ragging on the nails, where nails had ripped and stuff, and there'd be dirt underneath them and dirt around the cuticles. And you would actually be able to see the scales of the skin. And if you looked along their arms, you could actually see the hairs on their arms, which was really just the attention to detail on these things. And the expression on these guys' on these faces was just unbelievable. And you would go in and you would see the statue. Then you go around the corner and you would read the story about this person that you just saw the statue of and what it was all about and everything. But at the same time, when you were standing looking at the statue, there would be this, the story of this person would be being told over speakers in that room. And if you looked up on the wall, they would have the transcription going along the wall in a certain place. It was extremely well done. And then you would read about their story, and then you would learn more about that particular portion of the war that they were involved in. Like, if they were a doctor, you learned about the conditions that the doctors had to work under, and about the runners. And the runners were bringing the men down from the front line back down into the hospital area and stuff. And some of the runners were in poor health themselves and were having health challenges. But their goal, the one thing that kept them going, was to make sure that they got those injured soldiers off the front line down here to get treatment, whether or not they survived. They were more concerned about the frontline soldiers' health than they were about their own. So hearing these stories after stories, then you'd read about that area, and they had like a 2-scale model of what the front line actually looked like, and where the barracks were, where they slept, where the hospital was, where the food was, even down to the bottom corner where they just had this great big, like, it was almost like a log laying across this ditch, and that was the toilet, the latrine area, and it was just open. So you wanted to go to the bathroom, you just down trail, sat on the thing and did your thing. And then they were talking about how people were so weak, how some of these guys were so weak, they would actually fall into the latrine. And they didn't have the energy to get themselves out of there, and they some ended up dying in there, or catching more diseases and ended up passing away later on. I mean, the conditions were horrific. But to be able to see this as you're walking through, and these different stories and things. And then there was a story of another guy we came across, and the look of despair on his face is what got me right here. And it was a guy who was actually being he'd actually been charged with treason. So he was actually, in the statue form, he was having his last meal before being put to death. But then it turned out that he was reprieved because he had been in the hospital with, I can't remember what disease he had at the time, but he had just been released from hospital and put on night watch straight away. Like, the day he got released from hospital, he was put on night watch that night with no rest, and he fell asleep at his post. And he got charged with treason. But they relented, and he was actually had a reprieve from execution. But then we never found out what happened to him after that. There's no story that tells you what happened. So, and then there was the look of despair on the doctor's face as they were working as hard as they could to try and help the injured and the sick as best they could. But the one that, and each statue got me in a different way, had evoked different emotions with me. The one that was, I would say, the worst of them. I mean, some of them were pretty bad, but the worst one was, we get to one of the last stories, and you walk in the room, and there's the back of this nurse who is sitting on a trunk, and you're hearing her voice. And this is the first female. It's the only female statue you see in the whole thing. All the other ones are male. And as you walk around, you come around, and she's holding these letters, this bundle of letters, and there are tears streaming down her face on the model. And you're hearing the voice, and she was on one of the hospital ships, and they were bringing guys down from the campsite. It was quite a trek to get them down there and onto the hospital ship where they would get better medical care. And these nurses, of course, it had taken 4 months for them to sail from New Zealand to Gallipoli. It had taken them 4 months to get there. And she'd been writing letters to her brother who was there. And as the guys were coming on board, she was asking about her brother. Had anybody met her brother? Anybody seen her brother? And she had written these letters. And so she's sitting there with a stack of letters in the statue. And on the envelopes, it had "returned to sender, killed in action" written on the bundle of envelopes. And she had just been given, and the story behind the statue was what she had just been given her stack of letters back, had been returned to her with "returned to sender, killed in action." That had happened not long after she had gotten on the ship to go to Gallipoli. So her parents had known about it a lot longer than she had, but they couldn't get word to her because she was on the ship. And they couldn't get word to the ship to let her know. So it wasn't until the ship arrived in Gallipoli and she got handed this bundle of letters that had "returned to sender" on them that she found out about her brother had been killed in action. So, you know, it was pretty sobering going through there with and learning more about what happened there. So one of the things I think I don't know if I actually had any, I don't think I had any ancestors that were actually at Gallipoli. I had ancestors who fought in World War I and World War II, but I don't think we actually had any that were at Gallipoli. But if we did, even after knowing what I know from going through this exhibit, and we read every single word that was in this place. It took us 2.5 hours. But at the end, they had poppies there. And on the poppies, you could write a message, and then you would leave it at the soldier's feet as you went out. And this soldier was one of these, 3-time life-size people that were there. And he was up to his knees in poppies from everybody who had left a message on these poppies and stuff. You could write a little message. And so it was a very cool exhibit to go, a very sobering exhibit to go through, and one that really tugged at the emotions if you allowed it to. But one interesting thing was they were talking about Sir Peter Buck, and he was part of the Maori contingent that went over there. And I saw the name and I suddenly went, "Oh, I know where he's buried." And my dad looks at me and goes, "What?" And he goes, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I know where Sir Peter Buck is buried. And he goes, "What do you mean you know where he's buried?" I said, you remember back when we were living in Waitara and on the marae, they had that big tall column with the guy standing on top of it? He goes, "Yeah." I said, "That's Sir Peter Buck on top of the column, and his casket is at the bottom of the column." I said, "That's where he's buried." And Dad was like, "How do you know that?" I said, "The number of times that we got taken on the marae when we were in school and stuff, and we had to learn all the history about the marae and about Sir Peter Buck." I said, "I haven't heard his name in years," but the moment I said it, all I could see in my head was that column with his statue on top of it and the door at the bottom for his entombment where his casket is laid. And that's all I could, as soon as I saw his name, I had that image in my head. And my dad was like, "Wow, oh, okay." he never knew that. They lived there for 8 years. I was there for 6 years. And he never knew that. So that was kind of, I thought, I taught my dad something. But yeah, I'd have to go and have a look and see if any of my ancestors were participating in Gallipoli, because that would be interesting to experience that. But anyway, enough about that. I'm out of here. Go have a super fantastic, sparkling rest of your winning Wednesday, evening. I'm going to go have some dinner now, and we will catch you guys back here bright and early tomorrow morning, because tomorrow is Thankful Thursday. Hey, Conera.